Hi there, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining this course. We're going to give, it's 4:01 just now. We'll give everybody a couple of minutes. We'll give them to 4:03 and then we'll get started. Thanks for joining. Yeah, this is, I think probably most people know why you're here. It's the Sportsbook Fundamentals course. We've titled it How Modern Sportsbooks Really Work. So it's going to be a course offered by the Gaming Operations Academy, obviously. Over 2 days, and we're going to try to do two core things. I'll go over this again, but we'll set up the fundamentals on day one, and then we'll look a bit more strategy on day two. But as I say, we'll go into. I'm going to talk for around about half an hour. I'll introduce myself at 4:03, and then I'll open the floor to questions. And please, any questions you have regarding about what we're going to learn on the course, or if you've got any other questions, things that you would like to know if you're going to attend the course, I'm open to all those questions. And yeah, we can do that once I've gone through what we're going to be teaching. So again, thanks again for joining. Right, everybody, I think we'll just get going. Again, I'd like to welcome you all first and foremost. Thanks again for joining this afternoon to the Sportsbook Fundamentals course. We've titled it How Modern Sportsbooks Really Work. My name's Scott Rowan. I'll be a kind of course instructor for this. First, I'd just like to thank, powered by Altenar, which is a great tech provider. They're our partners in this course. So we'll talk a bit more about those guys when we do the course, but thanks to those guys. And obviously the Gaming Operations Academy for putting this on today. Right, Sportsbook Fundamentals. Let me just spell out what the journey we're going to take when the full course. Today I'm going to go through, there's 2 days of a course. It'll be 3 hours each day. There'll be 6 modules for each day. So day one is kind of setting things up. We're going to go, it's basically going to be the fundamentals of Sportsbook. We're going to look at where Sportsbooks have come from in the past, where they're kind of heading to, and all the fundamentals. What is key for Sportsbook, who all combines together, just various things. If you want to say day one is the fundamentals, and then on day two we're going to be quite ambitious with the course, because it is a fundamentals course. We're going to keep things at a fundamental level, but what I'm going to try and do is weave in some really kind of I would say my work involves, I use a lot of science to set up sportsbooks. I have a lot of experience. I've run sportsbooks for 15 years, but I also study the science of human experience. So I want to try and do the two things on the course. We're obviously going to keep it grounded in the fundamentals, but I want to drop some insights. Most people will know the ICE, the biggest conference is just gone. So I'm well versed on what everybody's offering in the sportsbook world, what the strategies are. So throughout the course, we're going to be sharing insights about where sportsbooks are heading to. So hopefully that'll be helpful too. Okay, so day one, the engine of sportsbooks. That's what we're going to look at. So yeah, this is really the key fundamentals. There'll be 6 modules on this. And again, there'll be different people with different goals and ambitions achieving the course and at different levels. What I will say at the start, no matter what question you have, whether you think it's a simple question or it's a hard question, all questions are welcome. So we will go through every module, and there'll be time to speak or time to ask questions after the end of every module on each day. And also you'll have time afterwards. So there's no pressure. Even if at one time you want to ask a question after day one, you have some thoughts, you can come back the next game day. I will allocate enough time to answer everybody's questions on the day or even afterwards if you want. So I just want that to be known to everybody. Okay, module 1 on day 1, the sportsbook story, past, present, and future. Again, we'll probably not spend too long on the past, but we will get a grounding about where sportsbooks have come from, the kind of online sportsbook, what the present looks like, and obviously the future. And what we'll look at is the kind of things that who are the main players just now, what are people doing, what strategies are people taking, where technology is going to help, where technology is going to hinder, and what kind of the new strategies people have employed just from the ICE conference where we've just come from. And what you'll learn out of this module, you'll understand how sportsbook have changed over time and why it works in the way it does. One thing I would always say, we live in a technology-driven world and everybody talks about tech and AI, but human motivations about why you place bets on sportsbook will not change. The technology will change, how we can deliver these messages will change, but that motivation, and we will talk a lot about the motivation of players, about different bets, different types, whether it's in play, when they're betting pre-match. So we'll do a lot of that in the course. What else you'll learn from this module? You'll see who's involved in running a modern sportsbook and how they connect. This is really important because, again, we can talk about a sportsbook, we can talk about odds, football matches, or whatever kind of sport. But the modern sportsbook is connected, where you're talking CRM, VIP, you have to connect all these things together. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how these things connect together, how they should optimally work, where sometimes people kind of can make errors. And we'll talk a good bit about that, which is really vital to running a successful sportsbook. And then we're going to talk, you'll be able to talk confidently about where the industry's heading. So again, I said at the top of this, I want to give you some insights that are not what you would call fundamental. They're quite high level insights about strategies that I personally use myself, strategies that I teach, sportsbooks that I work with. I want you to leave with that. So the whole core of this course is you'll leave with the fundamentals, you'll understand the basics, but you'll also get some strategies that will be what I would consider timeless. So the outcome from Modular 1, you'll understand the big picture of how today's sportsbook came to be and where they're going to. Okay, Module 2, we're going to look at sports markets and bets types explained. Yeah, again, for some on this will be well known. For others, it won't be. So we will go over the sports markets, bet types. It's really important to understand these things because I mentioned motivation in Module 1. People's motivations for placing different types of bets. These are really good insights that some people forget to, consider. But everybody placing a different bet. If you're placing an accumulator, let's say, there's a different motivation what you're after than placing a live bet. All these different things. So we'll talk about the markets. We'll talk about different bet types, and we'll explain them, and then we'll open up to questions if anybody's got any questions about how things work. What you will learn, you'll get to see how markets influence excitement, interest, and decision making. Again, this is key. I'm not going to go on about too much today, but just the motivation of players and how you can use markets to motivate them in different situations on your sportsbook. And then we'll look at connecting product design to player behavior. Again, this is it's fundamental, but it's we can connect some really good insights when you're setting up your sports markets. A few key things that won't change with human behavior, we'll apply that. And then the outcome for Modular 2, you'll understand why certain bets attract players more often than not. We'll look at also, just while we're here, we'll look at the motivation, the science of dopamine, how it's driven by certain bet types and things. So that's where we're going on Module 2. Module 3, odds, models, and margins 101. Again, this is kind of day one, as I said, is the fundamental types. So odds will explain different odds types because you have fractions, you have American odds, there's different types of odds. They're all saying the same things, but we'll look at odds, we'll look at some clear examples. Models, how people model certain things and how they're used within sportsbook, and margins 101. Margins are, for I guess most people know, but margins are the bit that sportsbook make their money. So if you've got a 5% margin, essentially the easiest way to explain it, if everybody's placed the same amount of bets on a win, draw, win, and your margin's 5%, the sportsbook would take home 5%. We'll look at how margins work within different bets, live betting versus kind of accumulators and pre-match betting, and we'll explain all that, and then we'll look at certain things. We'll answer the questions around those topics. What you will learn, what you'll take away from Module 3, understand how odds are created and why they change. This is really important as well because sometimes you can just go onto a sports book and you can just see odds. But what we'll look at is why we'll take examples of certain sports books, some of the successful ones, and why they position certain markets. So a good way to think about it, if you think about a supermarket, Supermarkets have things called loss leaders. So what they do is they make something really cheap and they advertise it. So that gets you in. But that's when they position the chocolate bar near the counter because they want you to buy the chocolate bar. Sportsbook do something similar. So we will look at that, what the strategies of some of the major players, why they do those strategies, why those strategies work for them, because they're bigger players, they have high volume, and why other people do certain things. And then, that will inform you, depending on the sportsbook you're running, that will give you an understanding about different strategies you can take. So what you will learn from Module 3, understand how odds are created and why they change, how your margins keep the sportsbook running long term, and why certain margins are really important. And these are key things as well. If certain people are betting on certain sports, you can actually identify them as good or bad players. That'll be important. And then we'll talk more clearly with trading and risk teams, how you can identify these things. Again, a lot of the modern sports books, they're on platforms that take care of these things, but it's good to get a basic understanding about what the trading teams are trying to achieve and what the risk teams are trying to achieve, and how you can keep a check on your own sports book and make sure these things are taken care of. So that'll be vital too. So the outcome for this, you'll understand how sportsbook makes money basically, without needing to be a trader, and we'll give you key insights. So if you're losing money, kind of some questions you can ask traders. I started off in trading myself, so I've got a background in that. So I'll give you some key understandings. Even maybe you're not interested in this, but why certain things are happening. So if you are on a platform, you can ask those questions to the traders. They'll be good questions to ask. Module 4, the player lens, profiling segmentation. This is absolutely huge. This is a huge topic, and we're going to take a good look at it. So profiling players, essentially, when players, when customers come in, there's clear betting patterns that people do. Like, people have heard of customers that come in just for bonus hunting. They have a clear pattern. Potential VIPs, they have a clear pattern. So what we'll talk about is profiling. I will give you some insights about how you can profile players, or how you can take a look at players and understand their betting patterns from an early stage. This can guide you whether they're going to be, profitable players or not. So human beings have behavioral patterns, and sportsbooks no different. When they bet in a certain way, there's a good indication that they'll be good players or players that are only here to take the bonuses. So we'll look at all that, and segmentation as well. Segmentation is another huge topic, but very, very important. And segmentation historically is done by, you could say, I'll give you a basic example. One of the old models of segmentation used to be like gold, silver, and bronze for your VIPs. But what people were doing at that point now, they were segmenting to player value. So sportsbooks used to take people and just put them in. If you've lost £100, you might be in bronze, £200 silver, £300 gold. But as things move on, I'll explain why that segmentation is outdated. It's not the model you want to take, and why you should be, your segmentation is much more aligned to player behavior, because how people bet is going to be more relevant to them than what they spend, because their spend is just how much they bring to the sportsbook, but they're going to be more interested in being segmented by their playing style than by how much they lose. The sportsbook's interested about how much somebody loses, but the player's interested in getting the correct kind of bets put in front of them, basically. So we'll talk about segmentation. What you will learn how to do, recognize different types of players and what drives them. That's going to be really important. Certainly like high value players and what drives them, the patterns that they'll show you. Understand why players behave differently at different times. Again, this is going to be really important as well. So you'll be able to, once you leave this, you'll be able to look at a player and understand their motivations, and then use player data smarter and more in a responsible way. So I kind of highlighted the segmentation point. There's more to it than that, but yeah, you'll understand why, just the insight that I gave you, segmenting players by behavior is much more valuable to the sportsbook than spend. And the outcome for module 4, you'll start seeing players as people, not just as numbers. And again, I can't highlight enough, we'll spend quite a bit of time on this, how this is going to be the differential for sportsbooks going forward. No matter what happens with AI, whether we get to AGI, all these things. If you take one thing away from today, and certainly I'll be hammering it in the course, is that you're dealing with real human beings. The technology can get really good, but you're dealing with human beings. Human beings and the tech experience the world differently. And people, the technology is going to get better and better, but the sports books that remember you're dealing with real people and treat them as people are going to win. That was my big takeaway from ICE. Lots of people are talking about what they can do with technology, but the more you get driven by technology, I'll give you a simple example. If you walk into a coffee shop, for instance, we all know these days people are using your data. So say, for instance, you've got a loyalty card and they give you an automated reward. They're using personalization. People know that now. So you just say, yeah, they're using my data. But people still want to be treated as real human beings. So the sports books that can use the data but still treat people as real human beings and recognize them as human beings will build more loyalty. The scientific data is really clear on that. And that's one thing that people are not taking too much into account with all this, the technology we have available, and it's going to be hugely important. I'll explain why. Right, let's move on to Module 5. We'll talk about promotions and bonuses that work. Again, another huge topic, really important for sportsbooks because promotions, say for instance, you've got your setup, you've got your sportsbook, you've got all the same capabilities as somebody else. So how you promote to people and how you keep them there, essentially with bonuses, are going to be huge. But this is also a topic that can go very wrong because most people will be aware, and a lot of sports books are aware, you can sometimes put bad promotions up that can be easily abused by bonus hunters. So it costs you're spending money to attract these players, and then they just take the promotions and leave. So it costs you doubly. So we're going to talk about this topic, and then we're going to look at bonuses that actually work. And I'll go into detail about why they work and why certain promotions work, why you should set certain promotions up for certain people and other people. This is a big topic. It's really, really important because if you get this wrong, you can promote to the wrong people and your sportsbook can be flooded with kind of bad customers that are just there to take your bonuses. So in the end of this module, you'll learn how to understand why some promotions feel exciting and others feel annoying. That's a really important thing as well. Design bonuses to support loyalty without causing problems. Again, this is a huge topic. And then spot when offers stop working or create bad habits. Yeah, again, this is a big topic there. Essentially, we can put technology in AI, but it can create bad patterns of play. And this is especially important if you're in a regulated market because regulators come down hard on these things if you're not taking care. So we'll look at those outcomes as well. What you'll gain confidence, building promotions, and feel fair and clear. You'll have a really good understanding what a good and bad promotion is and what bonuses should be used for and where they're actually abused by customers. So that's what you'll leave from this module. Okay, the final module on day one is payments, trust, and player experience. Again, another massive topic, but we'll go into the key parts of this, of payments, why they're important, why making them available, why they build trust signals essentially, because trust is a huge thing. Let me explain it in this way. If you enter a new sportsbook or any kind of business if you want, but especially sportsbook, why? Because you're winning and losing money. So think about it this way. Your players come in a little bit skeptical because they might like the offer, so you've promoted something that they might like, but they're still skeptical because they know inside that your job is to take money off them. And they're here to play, but they don't really want to lose money, but most good customers will lose money. So they come in with skeptical, let's say. If you don't make payments easy, if you don't make their onboarding and their player experience easy at the very start, they're going to not trust you whatsoever. And that's when people will come, take your bonuses, and then leave. So these topics are huge. I'm going to explain why, what the science says, and then how to set your sportsbook up to build trust through payments and player experience. So what you will leave from this module, you'll learn how to understand why deposits and withdrawals matter emotionally. That we'll go into that, but it should make sense. If you slow down people's withdrawals or deposits, it causes problems. You'll see where payment problems damage trust. I've highlighted that, but we'll go into it in more detail. Improve payment journeys without addressing adding pressure. That's going to be really important. If you think about this, we're talking about payments here, but all your player experience, again, another takeaway from today that we will talk about more in the course. When people are onboarding to your sportsbook, if you make the experience hard, so our brains, for instance, we can hold 7 things in our brains at one time. It's called cognitive load theory. But when we're playing sportsbook, we don't want that. Holding 7 things in your brain is when you're in school or you're at work and you have to do a really strong puzzle. That's the brain working at its maximum. Bear this in mind when you're setting up your sportsbook or how you're setting up your UX. Players want an easy experience. So when they're first coming on, remember that they don't trust you. So if you make a promise to them, keep the promise, make that player journey easy. This is just how the players' brains work. And you can put yourself in your own situation. Think about starting a new experience with somebody that you're winning and losing money. If they make it difficult at the start, you're not going to go through with the, we're going to talk about that, why it's important, but it's another huge topic, and there'll be some good insights there. The outcome, you'll know where trust is built and where it's lost. And that's going to be huge for every part of your sportsbook. Okay, that is day one. So day one, again, we get into some big topics, but we go over the fundamentals. We ground it in, the names in the course, the absolute fundamentals of what a sports book, the things that you have to do right, the dangers that lie with AI and certain technologies, plus the advantages as well. So we'll look at all that on day one. But day two is going to be the kind of ecosystem of growth. And as I said, I wanted to try and be quite ambitious with this course. Day one, give you some, ground the insights for people at all levels. So we'll answer all the questions, but I also want you leaving the course feeling that, that's something a little bit that I wasn't expecting. That's the goal of this course. So this is what I'm going to try and achieve in day two. So I've named this the ecosystem of growth. So module 7, marketing channels that matter. Again, this is a huge topic. We'll go into things in a lot more detail. How you market to people really does count. What time of day you contacted them, the timing you give their messages. We're going to talk about all these things because, again, historically, sportsbook, when the technology wasn't as good, people would say, right, CRM marketing, or it's 5 o'clock, the offer goes out at 5 o'clock and everybody gets it. But if you think about experience, human experience, we all have different rhythms. Somebody might be working, if you're in a board meeting or if you're in a meeting at 5 o'clock and we'll use this example. If somebody's like giving you, say you're going out for a cocktail Friday night, if you're in your business meeting at 3 p.m. and somebody sends you that marketing offer at that time, you have no interest. It's not relevant to you because you're thinking about producing, maybe it's, whatever you're doing within your meeting. But if that exact same message lands at 7 o'clock at night when you're finished, and that's when your mode, when the timing is correct for you to receive that message, it's exactly the same marketing message, but the tone and timing that you send the message will change the outcome. We're going to look at these things. We're going to look at different marketing channels, why these things really matter. And at the end of module 7, you'll learn how to understand which marketing channels really work for sportsbook, the differentials, when you should use different channels, match message at different player stages. I kind of mentioned it there. There's a different message you want to give to an in-play player because they're betting in the moment. So their mental state is different from somebody that's maybe more of an analytical player that likes to look at statistics. Again, if you send two messages the same, they will land differently because they're in a different emotional state. So we'll look at these things too. You'll tell the difference between bringing players in and keeping them. That's a huge thing as well. One thing is getting players to your sportsbook. The other thing is keeping them. There's two different ways you have to do that because they come usually for an offer or you've attracted them, but you keep them in a different way. You build loyalty with them in a different way. So we'll look at that and how you can do that with marketing channels. So the outcome for this part will be you market with purpose instead of noise. You'll know the differential. You'll understand tone, text, different channels, when to use them, when not to use them. That'll be the goal of module 7. Okay, module 8, data analytics and performance metrics. Again, all these topics are huge, and I will, we'll spend around half an hour on each one of these topics. I'll be open to any questions whatsoever, even like if you have questions afterwards, I'll give you my details. I'll answer all these questions. They are big topics. We can only go into so much, but I want to ground it. The thing to remember is when you're looking at data analytics or performance metrics, you can essentially find a performance metrics that say something's working and something's not. What do I mean by that? You can see with a player's activity, if you measure it over 7 days, maybe it's activity, but then over 3 months, it's different. So when you're analyzing data analytics and performance metrics, it's really, really, really important to understand what you're trying to measure here. Are you trying to measure retention? Are you trying to, is it churn, how you're getting them back? The different metrics you want to look at. I'm going to go into these topics because they're hugely important. Because let me explain it this way. If you're in charge of the sportsbook and your job is to produce the best sportsbook, to produce the best content, if you've got a CRM person or a VIP person, they work in a different part of the business, but you still work together. Their motivations are different to yours. So when they're producing their reports and their data, what tends to happen is people will produce analytics that are favorable to them. What I'm essentially going to show you in this part of the course is how to make sure that you put the analytics. So when you put out an offer, when you do any marketing, or when you're doing anything on the sportsbook, it's really, really, really important to have what you class as your success metrics set out before you make any of these things. Because what happens if you don't set out your success metrics for what you're trying to achieve with your sportsbook? Say, right, our goal is to bring in 100 players with this offer and retain them for 3 months. That's the success metrics. Because what happens if you don't set these things out early? People, because their motivations are different for their job roles, will find analytics that will prove their case to maybe get rewarded in their part of the business. So we'll talk about these things, why analytics is important, why data is important, but and where it works and where it doesn't work. And in the end, what you'll learn from this is understand the main sportsbook numbers and what they mean, like the key numbers, from the GGR to NGR, your bonus cost. We'll look at these sort of things. Focus on metrics that actually help decisions, because again, this is important. I once had I can tell this story. He was a great guy to work with. I'm mentioning no names, but I worked with a head of analytics, and we were preparing for a meeting, and I asked him to analyze some data, and he actually said to me, no, just tell me what you want the chart to see. Essentially, he was saying, I can make any chart look the way you want it to look, and that can be the case. But if you're responsible for the sportsbook and the overall profitability, it's really key you understand the metrics, because they won't hide in the end. If you're not making money, you're not making money. So we're going to ground it in those sorts of things and the kind of metrics that matter. And then we'll look at how to use data to support smarter teamwork, how you can get collaboration across VIP and CRM by all collaborating together and work more as a team. These are going to be fundamental. And the outcome, you'll feel more confident using numbers in conversations. So when you're talking about NGR, GGR, bonus cost, after this module, you'll be a lot more confident about what you're trying to achieve. Okay, module 9, live betting, streaming, and in-play engagement. Again, all these topics are huge, but we'll go over these things. We'll talk about, what is live betting, different kind of motivations for live bettors, why you should be contacting them, in a different way, why you should be treating them a different way, what they want to see. The UX setup, for instance, is important for live betting. They're in the moment, they're looking for bet to bet, so you don't want to clutter your screen with anything. That's different from when you're marketing at a different part of your sportsbook. We'll look at those sort of things. Streaming, about streaming content and whether it's viable for your sportsbook, whether it's even it's a good idea, the pluses and the minuses for streaming. And then in-play engagement as well. I touched upon that, how you can do that, the do's and the don'ts for these things, because in-play is very different in your sportsbook from pre-match. So we'll look at all those things and the things that are fundamental. So what you will learn how to do, understand why live betting feels so intense. I think most people will understand that, but we'll look at the player motivation for live betting and how it differs from pre-match betting and other types of betting. See how speed and time affect players' choices. Again, this should be, we'll look at this, but when you're in a live betting environment, the speed, because customers are betting on action that's live now. So if your data lags or anything is lagging in that live betting, you can get away with it pre-match, but live betting, it really counts, and that's how you can lose players. So you can have the best product, for instance, you can have the best offers, but if certain things aren't, the timings aren't correct or they're not up to speed, you're really going to lose players. And then we're going to look at how you can keep live experience exciting without overload. And that's an important question as well, because I talked about cognitive overload before. Live betting, again, we'll talk about what the player's experiencing in live betting, the do's and what not to do, and why those happen within a player. And we'll give you some clear examples. So the outcome for this, you'll learn how to manage excitement without chaos. It's going to be really important, especially for live betting. So we've only got 3 more, and then I'll open up to questions. Thank you for staying with us. Okay, module 10, gamification and UX psychology. Again, really important. Most people, I would imagine, have heard of gamification. It's brilliant, by the way. Gamification really works, but it really doesn't work as well if you don't understand it. Not to be a nerd about this, but the gamification is built on a theory that was developed over 100 years ago. A Russian physicist called Lev Vygotsky, he created what's called the zone of proximal development. Basically, how human beings, how you can motivate them by giving them challenges one step up for where they're interested in. That's what gamification is built upon. But it can also work against you. Not many people talk about how it can work against you, because players can feel cheated. If somebody doesn't want to be gamified, if they're not interested in these things, if they just want to have a live bet, if they just bet pre-match, if you keep on offering gamification, and this is what a lot of people are doing just now, just like gamification works, that can turn players off. So we'll discuss the pluses and the minuses of gamification, and then UX psychology. I touched on it before. It was about cognitive load theory, about how many things a customer actually wants to see when they come onto your sportsbook. Again, remember, they're in engagement mode, so they don't want to make a lot of decisions in their head. They don't want to have those 7 things. We'll discuss how you can set your UX up at different stages and the psychology behind it. What you will learn how to do: understand game style features to increase engagement, spot when features go too far. Again, this is gamification, actually can lead to addictive play. We'll talk about that. It's a really important topic. And design journeys that feel rewarding and not pushy. So take people on journeys that they're actually interested in, not ones that your teams have decided that they want, because the clearest way to lose a customer quickly is to tell them what they want. You have to get buy-in from them. If they aren't indicating they want these things and you don't stop these things, that will lose players, and we'll discuss that. The outcome: you will learn how to grow engagement while protecting trust, and that's huge for any modern sportsbook. Only 2 more modules and then questions. Okay, module 11, AI automation, the future of sportsbook. Again, huge topic, but again, I'm back from ICE. I work in this world, AI and understanding. I apply cognitive and behavioral science to sportsbooks, so I'm quite well placed to talk about these things. So we'll look at all these topics and what AI can do really well with your sportsbook, where it can really go wrong. Lots and lots of people are talking about where it can go wrong because the people obviously selling the AI are not pointing these things out. But just ask a basic question. Ask ChatGPT how closely you should, how you should deal with a customer after he's lost £1,000. This is what AI can't answer. This is where, this is just one example. Humans need to, when it comes to player experience and understanding human emotion, AI is not doing this for you. AI is recognizing patterns, but you always want to have humans at the end to understand, or it can go horribly wrong. Automation and the future of sportsbook. We're going to talk about the big talking points from, what was presented at ICE, what all the new things are, how they can help, how they can hinder. Again, we'll ground it in a modern sportsbook and we'll give you the insights. At the end of this, you'll learn how to understand AI, how it's used in sportsbook, the good uses, and most importantly, the bad uses, because most people will tell you the positives, but wherever there's a positive, it can turn to a negative. That's got to do with how customers' brain works. Essentially, just to give you a little insight, the brain state that can excite people, that gives you dopamine, is the same brain state that can push people into addictive behaviors. Not everybody, but it's exactly the same brain. The brain doesn't change, so you need to be careful how you're using AI. Know when to rely on systems and when people matter more. That's going to be hugely important. And then think clearly about automation and risks. Again, if you're in charge of a sportsbook, you're setting up a sportsbook, these are things that you really need to ask. So AI can bring a lot of positivity, and so can automation, but automation can make people feel like data points too. So for instance, I'll leave you if you've lost £1,000 in a place, you feel emotionally attached to that place, you've lost £1,000 of your own money. If they treat you like a data point, if you feel that they send out messages like a data point, how long do you think you're going to hang around? And this is what AI and personalization can do. The computer says yes, they don't feel the human emotion. So it's very important to get clear about when to use personalization in AI and when you don't want to go near it. So the outcome, you'll feel prepared for what's coming without any hype. You'll get the good and the bad. And finally, Model 12, regulation, responsibility, and sustainable growth. Again, we'll finish with this one because I touched upon it before. With all these powerful systems we have available now, it's really, really important that you understand the risks, both the good and bad. So some people are thinking they're just going to be able to switch on AI and they'll make a lot of money. That will never be the case because, as I say, they're further away in some respects than ever before. But that's not to take away the real advantages. But the key thing to remember from this is that anybody that's selling you the technology is not going to point out the negatives. There are very, very positives. But what you really need from this course, and when you're running a sportsbook, you need to understand the risks both sides. There's definitely strong advantages to sustainable growth using these technologies, but there's disadvantages as well. And we'll finish that and how it affects regulation. Most people are in regulated markets, how the regulators come down, the responsibility you have, things you won't get away with. So this is going to be an important topic to finish on, because sometimes people can say, I didn't know that was my responsibility. Because remember this, people that sell the technology will assume no responsibility. the owners of the sportsbook, the people that have the licenses, they will be the one that pay the regulatory fines. The technology companies that will be in their T's and C's, they won't assume responsibility. They're selling you the technology, and they're not going to tell you the negative impacts as well. They'll sell the positives. That's what everybody does when they're selling. So that's not on them. But what we'll do is we'll ground this as the last section. We'll give you both sides good questions to ask when you're taking on technology and things to ask your teams. And the outcome be you'll understand how to build a sportsbook that lasts responsibly. So that's it. So thank you. That was 36 minutes. I know I've talked for a long time. I'll talk for a lot longer in the course, but I apologize. But I'm going to open up now. If anybody's got any questions on what I've presented here, any questions, things that maybe you would like to, just any questions whatsoever. I'm happy to take any questions whatsoever if anybody has any. Listen, that's fine. If nobody's got any questions, let me just finish. Well, I'll finish by saying, yeah, so I've given you a lot of information. I've talked for 36 minutes and, my family will attest that, listen to me talk for 5 minutes can be too much. So I understand it's a lot we've gone through. It's a 2-day course. The one thing I will say, it's hard to ground it in 35 minutes, but if you choose to take this course, my promise to you will be, hopefully you've got an idea of, some of my experience in the topics I'm talking upon. You'll leave with a really good grounding, but you'll also leave with some cutting edge insights about certain topics. And if you do take the course, you'll have time to talk to me. Any questions, I'll ask any questions on this. AI, I apply the science to other parts of iGaming. So if you've got questions, if you work at a different part of the business, I can answer all those questions there. So what I'm trying to say is, yes, we're going to ground the 2-day course in the fundamentals of sportsbook. You're going to leave with this, but my hope is whoever takes the course, you'll leave with a lot more. That's what I want to say, and I can apply these topics to any part of the iGaming business essentially. So that will be available to you too. So that's really all I have to say today. I really thank everybody that's joined live. I think there was quite a lot of people here, so I appreciate your time. I know joining quite late in the day. I appreciate that. People are tired, well, depending on what part of the world you are. So many thanks for me. Thanks again to Adam, Jack, and the team for arranging the session. The Gaming Operations Academy, these guys will be in touch, and I really look forward to seeing anybody that chooses to take the course. But if you can't make the course, thank you very much for your time today. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. It was quite clear and tangible information.
Thank you.
On all sides. Thank you so much.
Good. Thank you.
So much. Bye.
Thank you now.
Hi mate, so just a quick one. It's Zach here from Australia. I just wanted to ask. I thought there was, I fully respect it's a free workshop and whatnot. Just thought with the online sportsbook fundamentals, it'd be a little bit more to offer. It sort of sounded just like it was a introduction to what was actually offered in the course as opposed to.
Zach, if you give me any questions, I'll answer them right now. We've got time. Give me a topic that you want, and I'm more than happy now to. If there's anything you want, as I say, it's hard that again I framed this, Zach, and again I apologize if not what you were expecting, but what I'm trying to show people here with this hour is the journey that we're going to go on. But we have time now, so I'm more than happy, Zach. If you've got any questions, if there's anything that you wanted to know. I've got time now. We've got 20 minutes, so feel free to fire away. Anybody else, that opens to anybody else. If anybody else has got questions, if they wanted anything specific now, I can answer questions.
Anyway, yeah, no, I appreciate your answer. It was more so just more so feedback as to.
That's fair. So again, we'll take it on board. Zach. Yeah, no, it's a fair point actually. It's a kind of.
Maybe course introduction as opposed to sportsbook fundamentals free workshop. Yeah. That's all. That's my.
I just wanted to respond to that, Zach, because actually Adam, who runs the game, we did discuss this at ICE. We're maybe thinking about changing the format of doing something, just teaching like kind of one of the modules in full, to give people an introduction. So your feedback's great. Again, anybody that's got feedback from what I presented here, please present it to Adam and the guys. We can change the format. This is what we've done this time, but I appreciate your comments, Zach, because it's actually no problem for me. We could just take one module and I could show people the taste of the kind of detail you're going to get. And so if that's what the feedback is, please share it with Adam and Jack, and for future courses we can do that. So I appreciate that, Zach.
For sure, thanks, mate. Like I said, it's you can't ask for much if it's a free course. So that's just my sort of gauge on it all. But thanks for your time. Anyway.
Appreciate it, Zach. Appreciate your feedback. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Anybody else? And listen, if you've got any sportsbook if any sportsbook or topics just now, we have 20 minutes. I can fire off. I can give you insights now if you want. If there's anything you've got a problem right now, I'm happy to answer any questions. So if anybody's still online and they want that, that's available to you right now. Okay, well, listen, again, I'll say thank you. And again, I appreciate that, Zach. It's good to get some honest feedback as well, because I understand your point as well. So it's good feedback. But again, hope to see as many as you that can make the course on the course. I'm really looking forward to it. I'll bring my best. I'll be bringing the latest insights, and hopefully it'll be valuable for anybody to take the course. But thanks again, everybody. And I'm going to go just now. If there's no more questions, I'll give you another 10-15 seconds. Any questions? And if not, I'll just log off. Okay, great. Thanks again, guys. Hope to see you on the course.